Want to know how to make this? Stay tuned and I'll show you. Hey squares, thanks for watching Square Type, the channel showcasing easy to follow pop-up card tutorials and demo videos. This is the dual pivoting arms pop-up. I'm going to use a ruler, glue stick, pencil, blade, a compass, some quick release tape, a hole punch, optional foam, fun foam tape, and cardstock. So first let's preview the mechanism I'm going to be making. It's a pull tab with 2 arms swinging on 3 hubs, pivoting around 3 hubs. See that? On the back side, you've got a slot that the pull tab is traveling down along. Okay, so my cardstock is not that sturdy, so I'm taking 6 pieces and I'm doubling each one up so that I have 3 sturdy strips of paper. I'm also going to use 3 hubs and then 3 sets of rings and hub caps. You can put rings and hub caps on one side of the hub where the flaps are, and you can also put a ring and hub cap on the back side of the hub where the H is. That's totally optional. If you don't know how to make a paper hub, go ahead and check out the link up above and down below in the description field to my previous video where I do a small refresher on making a hub. So here I've got my 3 strips of sturdy cardstock, all doubled up, and I'm just going to punch a hole at the top of each one of those and set them aside. Now with my orange cardstock, it's just 1 layer. This is going to serve as the base of my mechanism. I'm just going to draw a line straight down the center of this card. And these are just the techniques used to build this. I'm not really going to give much more in terms of measurements. So anywhere from 1/3 of an inch to 1 inch or 2 down from the top, make the first mark, and a few inches from that first mark, make a second mark. Now take your compass and take the measure, but the distance between these 2 marks is going to be the radius of your circle. Your circle has to fit inside of that base. So there's my circle, and that's the radius right there. Okay, so I'm just going to draw that out. Just so you know, this is what I discovered was the simplest way of making this kind of mechanism without having to do a lot in terms of measuring. You just take this radius and you transfer it over to the side and mark it like this, and then take this shorter measure and then transfer it back to the mid-level like this. From the edge toward the inside, make a mark right there, and then on the other side, make a mark right there. Believe it or not, this is the furthest measure you can make that is closest to the center without hindering the ability for those arms to swing. The further out you put these 2 points, these pivot points, the more shallow the swing, and the further in you go, the more deep the swing. However, there is a limit, just so you know. Okay, so I've made my circles where my holes are going to be punched, and I made the middle into a slot right there. And then I take my pull tab and my 2 arms and I just line up that top hole with the top of the slot and just splay out the 2 arms so that they're covering those 2 side holes, because the side holes are really pivot points, like that. So let me just take the pull tab out and do the same thing with the arms. Just line up those holes at the top with the top of the slot, cover the side holes with that angle, and just tape it down in place so I can flip it over and make a mark on those arms. See that through the hole? Now that I know where that hole should be, I'm just going to line up my 2 holes there and see the marks right there. I don't know if you can see it in the shadow. I'm just going to mark them in black. I'm going to just make them longer so you can see it. And what I found was a simple way was just to make this into kind of like a crosshair kind of thing, because it's easier for me to punch a hole when I know where the hole center is supposed to be. So at the center of the top hole, just draw a line down from there. Try to be really straight with that line. See that? Now I can take my hole punch and kind of aim for that center. I'm still a little off, but I was close. But yeah, that's going to be the center of that hole, and see how it all lines up now? Okay, now you need to make a second hole, or a third hole. So line up the center of the slot with that top hole, and then follow that line all the way across. Do the same thing to the other side. Line up that top hole with the slot, and then line it up all the way across. Tape it down. Flip it over and do the same thing. Mark where the hole is again. And it's going to look like this. See that? Okay, so now you can flip it back over and do the same thing. Just draw that line out so you can see it, and that's your crosshairs now that you can aim for when you're punching that hole. So there. Okay, so now you have to make these last two holes into a slot. So just draw a line down the sides like that, and you're just going to cut along those two lines, and you'll have the slots. And that's really what makes it possible for this mechanism to move. Okay, see that distance right there between the pull tab and that side hole? That's kind of close, but we'll fix that later. So see this one too, how there's space, only a little bit of space between the very top and that hole right there. And it's the same thing on the other side. See how it actually just touches that hole when it shifts over? That's not good. So we're gonna have to trim these down. And it's pretty simple enough. You just cut like an arch, and now there's a lot of room around it. And notice that even when it twists, it doesn't really run into that other hole. So that's really good. Okay, so let's go ahead and put these together. We're just going to stack them so the pull tab is on top, because the pull tab doesn't have a slot, it just has a hole, which is nice. And I'm going to take one of my hubs, pass the flaps through from the top, through the top holes of each one of those arms, and through the slots on the slot on the back. And then I'm taking a ring and passing it through, because when a flap opens up, it can actually slip inside of that slot. So the best thing to do is just put a ring through it like this, and then just secure it like that. So what you do is you just put some glue on that hub cap, that orange circle, and then just slap it down on top to secure the flaps in place, and just snip off the overhanging tails of those flaps, and now it's smooth as butter. Okay, so with the arms, just open them up, and then you can pass a hub through them. You can also put a ring on the back of the hub before you pass it through. That's perfectly fine. But you do need to definitely put a ring on the front of this, because there's a slot on that arm, and that hub flap will pass right through that slot arm, so arm slot, so you have to put a ring and a hubcap to secure it. Okay, do the same thing to the other side, and now you can move these two. So a couple more steps, flip it over, and notice the backs of the hubs. See how they're kind of touching the middle? So you can secure them by gluing them down with hubcaps, but you still have to make sure that it doesn't touch that middle hubcap, because that can really mess things up for you. An easy way to do it is just put some tape, but you can also just glue those hubcaps down. Remember, these are pivot points, and they can actually shift around, but since they're just pivot points, you can glue them down and they're perfectly fine. Okay, so notice how the pull tab is also rubbing on those hubcaps. So you can either trim that pull tab so it's skinnier, or you can trim the hubcaps and the hubs just like this. And now you have a channel in which that pull tab can freely travel. So see how smooth that is? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to switch to a smaller version of that mechanism because I want it to fit in the card. So notice how I put hubcaps on the back, and then on the front I have my my hubs with rings and stuff. And then I also put a guide slot and a thumb notch for my pull tab to travel through. Okay, so, but basically everything else is the same. But you understand the principles now. So now all you have to just get is, where do you put the glue? So what you do is you push the pull tab all the way in, and then you mark the inside edge of those arms onto the base, the blue base on the back, right? And then pull the pull tab all the way out and mark the inside edge of those arms again. Oh, and also mark the where the pull tab is, the edge of the pull tab, like that. And do the same thing to the top while the pull tab is pushed all the way in. Okay, so these areas that you marked are where you can put your glue. Okay, I'm gonna just shade them in just so you can see where the gluing surfaces are. See? It's there, it's here. And then one more to this other side. Those are your gluing surfaces. So you take your scissors and you just cut along the outside edges of those marks. I'm just going to square off the tops of these because they're just the gluing edges anyway, and they're not going to hinder any of the swinging action. So there it is. So see how the arms just hang on the outside of that curved surface? Okay, so this purple is going to be my card, the inside of my card. So, or the back side of my card. And this is my image with a girl and two braids. So what you do first is you trace your mechanism onto the back side of the card. Okay, the side that's not going to show. And cut along just the curves. Just slice along the curved parts right there, just those two sides. And those two sides is where, when you slip the arms through those things, flip it over, you can now see that the arms can swing through those slots. Now all you have to do is just put glue on those shaded areas right there. And then you can slip those arms back through those slots. Remember, the glue is facing down now. Just be careful. And also make sure that when this is glued down, that all of the curves are aligned perfectly with each other. That is the only thing that at this point that can really mess you up. Just make sure that those sliced areas line up with those the curves of your mechanism. Okay, so the rest is really just aesthetics. So what I'm doing now is just putting a little tape on the arms. That's my only gluing surface. So right now I'm just going to check if my braids are going to cause me any problems. So I'm just sticking them on temporarily onto the arms, and I'm just swinging it along, seeing if it's nice and smooth, and checking if the body of my image is also going to be okay. I think that I'm going to raise the body up above the card so that these braids can travel along perfectly smoothly on the back. And all I did was trace the location of where the starting position for the braids are and then the ending position of the braids. And now I'm going to put some fun foam for the body to sit on, like that. And I'm just making sure that they're not messing with the braids at all. And also making sure that I have the thumb notches cut on every single level, which I forgot to do earlier, so now I'm doing it. And now I can glue the braids onto just those arms, just those parts that are sticking out from the back. That's the only location where they're connected. So if you want, you can put some really strong glue or some foam tape or something really strong there. But I've found that the glue stick works just fine, as long as they're not running into anything that, you know, will hold them up. So that's why I'm taking all these precautions, making sure there are gaps between things. Okay, so all that's left now is just to put a back on this thing, and I have to show you where you can put the glue on the back. The only thing that you have to worry about is that pull tab and that slot and that and the hub that is sliding along that slot. So as long as you keep the glue away from those areas that I just circled, then you'll be fine. So you can put glue everywhere else. You can even put them on top of the other two hubs on the sides, but just not along where the pull tab and that center slot is. Now you can put a back on this thing and it's going to be cute, cute, cute. I've been working with this pop-up for a while because of the measurements, and you know how terrible I am at that. And when I came up with the circle and take that measure of the radius and use that to find the closest point that you can put those pivot points, it was like, oh, I did it! It was so exciting. Anyway, I hope that that's really useful for you. I hope that you use this pop-up. Let me know if you do and show me what you got. Share this video with your friends. I need more viewers. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Like, dislike, comment. Let me know what you thought. Thanks for watching. Bye.